The Auburn Tigers seem to have done enough to lock up a national seed.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Auburn. I'm Zach Blackerby. He is baseball's Lindsay, Crosby. The Auburn Tigers win 1 out of 3 against Georgia, the SEC regular season champs. And yes, we all wanted more. And yes, Auburn certainly was capable of more. But all last week, we said if they win 1, that's definitely enough for them to secure a national seed. If you look at RPI, if you look at public opinion, if you look at track record, if you look at eye test, everything about this Auburn baseball team, Lindsay, screams they have been a top 8 team all season long, and they are incredibly deserving of hosting a regional. And then, of course, the opportunity to host a super regional if they win that first postseason regional.
Yeah, I mean, they are number 17. I'm sorry, they have 17 conference wins.
Correct.
And the fact that that conference is the SEC absolutely matters. They are literally number 1 in strength of schedule in the entire country. Nobody played a harder schedule than Auburn. Their non-conference RPI is number 1, and overall in RPI, they are 3.
Okay.
By every possible measure. Like, they only have 2 losses that are not quad 1 losses. Auburn has more quad 1 wins than UCLA played quad 1 teams.
How about that?
Yeah, like it's matter of fact, as I kind of casually scroll through, I think only one school in the country has more quad 1 wins than Auburn, and that's Georgia Tech, and they're above them in RPI. So by every possible measure, the Tigers have done enough to be a top 8 seed, and that's kind of irregardless of what happens in Hoover this upcoming week.
Yeah, Lindsay, that's something I said after the Saturday live when Auburn lost to Georgia, and even the one Friday night. Excuse me, I'm getting my games mixed up. Saturday was game 3, so after the Friday live where we lost, and then after the Saturday one where we won, I said, look, Hoover. What happens in Hoover? Like, if Auburn's great at Hoover next week, that'd be fun. That'd be exciting. It doesn't impact it. If Auburn's one and done in Hoover, I don't think it means anything one way or the other. I want to be consistent here. I'm not just saying this in case Auburn does something bad. Like, either way, of course, I want Auburn to win. It'd be really cool for Butch Thompson to win an SEC tournament championship. No question about it.
Never done it.
Yeah, right. And it's tough to do. And it's going to be tough too without having that double bye. And we'll talk about the bracket in a second, but it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters one way or the other. Auburn is a national seed. I think they deserve it. And even if they were to kind of go up a seed line or 2, which I don't think they would, but even if they were to do that, if they won in Hoover next week, I personally don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, there's no real difference in being the number 7 national seed and the number 5 national seed or 6 national, 6 to 5, 5 to 4, none of that matters. Everybody gets, if I remember right, you get reseeded when you go to Omaha anyway. And so if you're on the left side of the bracket, you host the regional, you're in line to host a super if you get there. Yeah. And then if you win that and go to Omaha, they're going to reseed you anyway. So
there it is.
As long as you're on the left side of the bracket as a 1 seed, that is all that matters. And the reason why Hoover doesn't necessarily change things for Auburn, and we're going to get to that bracket in a second, is Auburn has a ton of quad 1 games already. Like, what you can get in Hoover in the SEC tournament is if you are kind of on the bubble of either bumping up a spot in RPI to become a host. If you're on the bubble to make the tournament, period, getting some more quad 1 wins can help you. Even though they're a neutral site, they're not the same weight as going on the road, but they're still additive to your record. If you're on the bubble, it can help you. Auburn's not on any sort of bubble. Auburn is solidly in that group of 8. And so that's why we say it doesn't really do anything for you. And a lot of these teams, it's not going to do much for them. And so I am curious how much you see some of the higher seeded teams in Hoover actually push really hard to try to win next week or this week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's different theories, right? As far as, load management, how much of a stress you want to put on your pitching and all of that. But
yeah,
I mean, the gap in time between all right, the Sunday following all of this and then regionals happening, 4 days later, right? I guess some of them start that Thursday.
Friday. Yeah.
Sure. Do they all start Friday?
They all start Friday. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that's even more time.
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got plenty of time to, for those guys. I mean, that's more rest than they're used to getting in most cases. So
setting a rotation, all that good stuff.
Right. So we'll see how they handle all that. But I mean, I want Auburn to be competitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I don't want them to be competitive for the sake of their postseason life. I want them just to be competitive because we want Auburn to win baseball games. So, do you have the RPI pulled up? I had it, and it seems that I have clicked off of it. But it seems to be, if I remember right, it's the same. It's kind of reverted back to what it was most of last week, right? With UCLA at 1, Georgia Tech at 2, then Auburn back at 3.
Yes, that is what it is. And you're going to see just so Auburn fans are ready. You're going to see a lot of conversation from folks who don't know ball. Auburn has 18 losses. They shouldn't be seated above a team with 40 wins when they only have 30. You're going to see
that the voice of public opinion that you're mimicking there?
Yes, that is the voice of a non-ball knower who was given some very small platform and decided to complain. And just again, the things that I mentioned, hardest strength of schedule in the country, number 1 non-conference RPI, number 12 non-conference strength of schedule, only 2 losses outside of quad 1. All of that stuff is why Auburn is in the top of RPI with a bunch of teams with 40 plus wins. That is, and so you're going to hear a lot of that. Probably not so much this week, but next weekend when we're waiting for them to announce the the NCAA tournament slots and the hosts and the national seeds and everything. You're going to hear a lot of that, especially if Auburn doesn't make a deep run in Hoover, which, again, doesn't really help them any. So just be prepared for that. You have a couple days, but just be prepared for that.
Just brace yourselves. I think it's a good tip by you. That's coming for sure.
Yep.
Just don't even engage would be my advice there.
Or just tell them they don't know ball and then walk away, because people love that, and that absolutely wins every argument.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah,
that's true too.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the SEC tournament bracket in just a moment, right here on this quick baseball edition of Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Lindsay, you can bet on Auburn to win the College World Series, 8th best odds at plus 1,600. I guess tied for 7th. Both Auburn and Georgia sitting at plus 1,600 odds to win, according to our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. FanDuel, play your game. All right, taking a look at the SEC tournament bracket that starts next week, starts Tuesday. Auburn will not play until Game 4 on Wednesday, which I made this joke afterwards. I made this joke after the Game 3 reaction. Of course, Auburn's going to play the latest possible game because that's what they do every time in Hoover. And so that game could start at 8 o'clock. It could start at 9 o'clock. It could start later than that, or so late where it moves to Thursday morning.
Yes, because they no longer are trying to play 4 games on Thursday. That used to be a thing. Because of that, they're going to be a little more willing to move day 1's last game, which is LSU versus Oklahoma. Talk about a woofer. And day 2's last game. If there's any sort of weather, any sort of delays, they are going to move those to the next day, because now they have open spots, right? Auburn, instead of playing at 11 p.m. on Wednesday night, can instead play on Thursday morning at, 10, 11, and they can still have the field free for the 3 p.m. scheduled game. And I'm actually willing to kind of bet that Auburn's not going to get that game in on Wednesday night at a normal time.
And we'll probably know that, right? Like if that last game that's scheduled for Tuesday, that 11-14 matchup against Oklahoma and LSU, if that moves to Wednesday, then there's no way Auburn plays Wednesday night. And so then
exactly that way they would automatically be on Thursday.
Yeah, they'd play Thursday morning, and then
the only question we would have would be the time, right?
Sure. Right. Yeah, and then if they were to win that, they'd play Friday and Saturday and Sunday, which would make it like a normal weekend anyway, if they were to keep winning.
Just like a 4-game series over a weekend. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm kind of hoping that's what happens.
Yeah. And the way that this works is Auburn will play the winner of that Oklahoma LSU game. And if Auburn can manage to knock off one of those powerhouses, they would then face Texas A&M, the 3 seed, on Friday. So they would play. They're scheduled for Wednesday, and then they would play Friday. And again, I don't think that Wednesday night game is going to happen on Wednesday night, but
right.
If they
beat that Texas Auburn A&M game would be the last game on Friday, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's only 2 scheduled for Friday, and I've never seen something get pushed that far. So it would be probably like a 6:30, 7 o'clock start, not super late. If they win that game, they would go to the second game on Saturday, which would be the winner of Texas. It could be Texas or Arkansas, South Carolina, or Tennessee.
If it goes chalk, it would be the winner of Arkansas and Texas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if they win that game, they are in the championship on Sunday, and they would play at 1 p.m. And then that night is when the NCAA announces the national seeds. There's a whole show. I think it's on ESPN or something. But there's a whole show where they announce the national seeds, and the media were typically invited to like come watch the guys as they learn. And Butch always has a nice little talk for them that he's prepared. But yeah. Again, you got to get through
for folks who are kind of new to this, which I think Auburn baseball and college baseball picked up a lot of fans this year. It's pretty much identical to the SEC tournament in basketball, and then that ends, and then a few hours later there's a selection show. Like it's identical essentially.
Yeah. Because most schools, unless you're playing on Sunday, you're already home. Right. And even then, like Auburn, if that game starts at 1 o'clock, they end that at 4. They're likely home in time for that show, or pretty close to being home in time for the selection show. But yeah, that's what it is. I mean, it's very similar to basketball. And then the tournament is structured completely different from how basketball is structured for their
right. And yeah, we'll go deeper into that once the field is set. And we'll kind of explain what all needs to happen there. But
next week.
But yeah. As far as the draw for Auburn in the SEC tournament, obviously, like you got to feel good about playing either Oklahoma or LSU. Which I'm honestly looking at the other matchups: Ole Miss, Missouri, Vandy, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina. Like if I had to pick a winner of a matchup, I think I would take that Oklahoma LSU one.
Yeah, that is so. Like you haven't played LSU this year, but they have really struggled. When you played Oklahoma, you won 2 out of 3. You ruled them in game 3, and you lost game 2. Like the only game that you lost was a 2-1 loss. So, you outscored them 21-10 in your 3 games. You feel good about playing them. LSU's been a train wreck this year. You feel good about playing them. Maybe a little bit of you've got a former player over there. We'll see how that goes. But you feel good about that matchup.
Yeah. Yeah. And then A&M, right? You saw them not too long ago, and you won 2 out of 3 against them. So you know that you can take them.
And you ruled them in one of those 2 games.
Sure. Right. So, we'll see exactly. I mean, I guess the situation will be a little different, right? That would be their first bit of pitching. It would be Auburn's second starter.
Mm-hmm.
So curious to see who they lead off with from the mound. What's your gut on that?
It's one of those things, depending on how serious you're taking it, right? A lot of schools start at the if you can get a lot of schools like to start with their better guys, and it's typically something where you don't want to save a guy and then not use him because you lost, right? You don't treat it the same as you treat a regional where you're playing 3 games over the weekend. And so like you can have your ace go in game 2. So a lot of guys will start their best pitcher in the first game unless they're close.
I want to
enough
save
the
Alvarez for A&M.
Yeah. The way that it lines up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think Auburn, it would be in a position, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. I think Auburn would be in a position where they probably get past the first game without using the weekend rotation. Maybe this is something where you bring Jackson Sanders back.
That's interesting.
Just the idea for me here would be you save your weekend rotation for.
So you wouldn't start a weekend starter against the winner of LSU Oklahoma?
I think if you do that, you are moving a guy up a day, and then you have him on a lot of extra rest for the regionals. I think if it mattered, you probably do that. But since this doesn't matter for you, let's not take a weekend starter who pitched on Thursday, which for Auburn, that'd be Jake Marciano or Jackson Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Move them up to Wednesday, and then make them have an extra 2 days of rest at a minimum before they pitched in the regionals. Does it make sense? Like if
it does,
if the tournament mattered, I think, yes, you move a guy up because you need the wins to get in. But since the SEC tournament doesn't do anything for you, let's not get too disruptive of the starter's schedule.
Hate seeing start in the first game.
Who?
I don't think this will happen, but I would love to see LJ Cormier start.
That would be I'm not opposed to it.
I don't think it'll happen, but I mean, I think you're kind of banking on him being one of those guys next year. Like, let's see what he's got. Let's see what happens.
An opportunity.
I mean, this is kind of when we saw, Andreas really step up last year and start to get going. Like, why not see if we can see a similar growth track with LJ Cormier?
Yeah, I mean, he gave you 4 2/3 against Georgia. Like, he's given you length this year. And so this is the next logical progression. And if you look at when he pitched on Friday. That would be a little bit of an aggressive push forward. Yeah. You love one of the guys who pitched on Thursday. That's why I suggested Jackson Sanders. He pitched on Thursday. It's only 1 day of adjustment. But I would love the idea of getting Cormier. And maybe that's something where for the SEC tournament, they say, hey, we're going to give you a little bit of extended run. We might put, if we get to Friday and we give Jake Marciano a start, we may cut his start short since this doesn't matter. And you're going to go in behind him and you're going to give us length. Maybe they do something like that. And I'm not opposed to that concept either.
Well, now you've got me thinking with the, Jackson Sanders decision. A lot of Auburn fans were kind of scratching their head a little bit when he did go in Thursday to relieve Marciano, because he's normally stacked behind, or whoever goes on, in game 2 is what we
usually hold them for later in the weekend. Yeah.
I kind of, maybe that was part of the decision. I can't see Butch making a decision based on the SEC tournament the following week, but you never know.
They are, having talked to, Coach Tiefer and guys like that, like they are cognizant of what is coming up. And if we have a guy who's on, say he's a Saturday guy now, but we know we have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday in 2 weeks, is there an avenue to get him onto Friday the first week so we can then get him onto Thursday? Like they're cognizant, and really they don't want to do, from my experience, they don't want to do more than 1 day adjustment. So I do think Jackson Sanders, that may have been a little bit of, if we end up getting the 6th seed, because Auburn, but going into Georgia, it was up in the air where they would be seated. They could have been seated, in the top 4 and had the double bye. 6 was actually kind of the worst case scenario, was being at 6. But moving Sanders up behind Marciano gave them that, hey, if we do end up as the 6, we can push him 1 day and he's prepared to go. And then again, I don't think you're going to play on Wednesday night anyway. Or if you do, it's going to be 11 p.m. But
that's a good point.
I don't think you'll play that anyway.
That's a good point. Lindsay, Crosby, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. All of the Auburn baseball, thebarnauburn.com, the Barn Baseball Show here as well. the Atlanta Braves content, bravestoday.com and the Braves Today podcast, because that is the best team in baseball, and we're having a ton of fun covering.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Please like the video. Please subscribe if you're tuned in on audio. Please subscribe and leave us a review. Helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.